Hi. You're watching Reddit Confessions. And I have no idea how to say this without falling apart, so I'll just start with the sentence that broke my life. I never loved you. That's what she said. Right after dinner. While folding a towel. No build-up. No fight. No apology. Just that. Like she was commenting on the weather. I stood there, holding the remote, with half a joke still in my throat. It was our 8th anniversary. I'd made meatloaf, her favorite, or so I thought. We had just finished watching a rerun of a show we'd seen 3 times already. And she told me she never loved me. I laughed. For a second, I really thought she was kidding. I said. That's messed up. You got me. But she didn't smile. She just looked down and adjusted the towel on the rack like she was aligning her life without me already. She didn't explain. She didn't cry. She just asked me to pack when I'm ready. And I did. I left the next morning without asking questions, because asking felt pathetic. I figured maybe she was tired. Maybe I had smothered her. Maybe she realized she married the wrong man and didn't have the heart to say it earlier. So I gave her the space she wanted, and then gave her the rest of my life, too. 3 years passed. I never tried to reach her. Never spoke her name out loud. I convinced myself that pretending it never happened was the only way to survive. But this week, I saw something. I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't digging for answers. I had accepted my fate, or so I thought. But the truth found me anyway. And it didn't knock. It crashed through my peace like a wrecking ball. She lied. She absolutely loved me. But she couldn't be with me, not because of me. Because of something else. And now, I have to live with a new kind of pain, knowing that I walked away from a woman who, for reasons I'm only just beginning to understand, was hiding a truth darker than rejection. The message came from an account with no profile picture, no posts, no name. Just a blinking notification on an email I hadn't touched in years. The subject line was only 2 words, she lied. I nearly deleted it, thinking it was spam. But something about the timing, the exact day, 3 years to the hour since I left Lena, made me click it. Inside was one sentence. No greeting. No sign-off. Just. Check the journal under the floorboard, hallway closet. She didn't want you to know. I swear I stood frozen for 10 full minutes. My heart was beating so hard it made my teeth hurt. I tried to reason with myself, maybe it was a prank, maybe someone knew too much, maybe grief makes you hallucinate emails. But my hands were already grabbing the keys before my mind caught up. The hallway closet was smaller than I remembered. I dropped to my knees and started pressing on the floorboard slats. It felt ridiculous. Like something out of a bad movie. And then, click. One panel lifted slightly. Inside was a thin, leather-bound journal. Her handwriting was all over it. Pages folded. Corners worn. And as I turned that first page, I swear I forgot how to breathe. The first entry was dated 6 months before she told me she never loved me. If you're reading this, I hope it's because I finally told you everything. But knowing me, I probably lied again. My knees buckled. I sat right there on the cold hardwood and flipped page after page. It wasn't just a journal. It was a confession. A quiet scream scribbled in ink. She wrote about how tired she was of pretending she was okay. How she would stare at me in the morning and wonder what it would be like to just tell me the truth. But every time she tried, something always stopped her. And then I saw the name. Elliot. Not a lover. Not an affair partner. Her brother. Lena had been keeping a secret for years, one that had nothing to do with me, but destroyed everything anyway. She had been receiving threats. Real ones. From her estranged brother Elliot, a man she had escaped from when she was 19, after years of something she never named but hinted at with words like control, manipulation, and fear. She wrote that Elliot had resurfaced. He knew about me. He sent her photos of us together. He warned her that if she didn't end it with me, completely, and convincingly, he would come for me. She had tried going to the police, but he used different names. No paper trail. No charges ever stuck. And Lena had always told me she hated drama. Now I understood why. Her whole life had been a quiet war. The journal ended abruptly, unfinished. But it was enough. Enough to make me realize she didn't push me away because she stopped loving me. She pushed me away to keep me alive. 3 years I spent thinking I wasn't enough. 3 years believing I was unlovable. And all along, she was bleeding in silence, protecting me from a past I never even saw coming. I sat there until morning. My phone buzzed twice with unknown numbers. I ignored them. Because I knew what I had to do next. I had to find her. And I had to find him. But nothing, could have prepared me for what I was about to discover when I did. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. My mind kept looping through her words in that journal, how she pushed me away to protect me, how she lived in fear, how Elliot was still out there. That name. I had never heard it once in our years together. Not in family stories, not in holiday conversations, not even by accident. For someone like Lena, who couldn't lie convincingly about a surprise birthday cake, to hide a whole person, it chilled me. I took a screenshot and sent it to the only person who might still be in contact with her, Sienna, Lena's old coworker. We hadn't spoken in years, but I found her on Instagram. My message was short: "Do you know where Lena is? I need to talk to her. It's about Elliot." She responded in less than 5 minutes. "Colby. Oh God. She's in Vermont. But you need to know, she's not the same. Not the same." That phrase hit harder than I expected. What did that mean? I didn't ask for details. I just got in the car and drove. I crossed into Vermont by nightfall, muscles aching, head pounding from caffeine and adrenaline. I didn't have an address, just the name of a small bookstore in Middlebury. Sienna said Lena sometimes helped out there on weekends under a different name. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe a tearful reunion. Maybe a slap in the face. Maybe nothing at all. What I found was neither. The bookstore was tucked between a bakery and a florist, glowing soft yellow through the window panes. I stepped inside, heart pounding so hard I thought the cashier might hear it. And then, there she was. Behind the register. Her hair was shorter, darker, and her eyes had more shadow than I remembered. But it was her. But I didn't come this far to run. I walked up to the counter, and when our eyes finally met, her whole face changed. Like every bone in her body turned to glass. She didn't say my name. She didn't breathe. Just stared, paralyzed. "I read it," I said, keeping my voice low. "The journal. The one under the floorboard." Her hands trembled, and she set down the receipt she was holding. "Colby, you weren't supposed to see that." "I know." She looked over her shoulder, then back at me. "We can't talk here. Not now. Not with him watching." I blinked. "Who?" She didn't answer. She just slipped a small card into my hand across the counter, like it was a receipt, and said softly, "Come to this address in 30 minutes. And don't let anyone follow you." Then she turned her back and walked into the stockroom, leaving me standing there, stunned. When I looked at the card, my blood turned cold. It wasn't a bookstore address. It was a motel. And beneath the room number, in shaky handwriting, was a single warning. "If he finds us together, he won't let either of us leave." I waited exactly 30 minutes. Not a second more, not a second less. I parked my car at the diner 2 blocks away and walked the rest of the way to the motel on foot. It was the kind of place where the neon sign buzzed without meaning, and the ice machine was probably older than me. Room 12. That's what the card had said. I knocked twice. No answer. I hesitated, then knocked again, softer this time, like I was afraid of waking something that shouldn't be disturbed. I was about to turn around when the door opened just a crack, and Lena's eye appeared in the gap. She looked older now, not by age, but by experience. Like life had been dragging her behind it for the past 3 years. She pulled me inside quickly and locked the door behind us. The room was dim, just one flickering lamp in the corner and a faint smell of burnt coffee in the air. She didn't hug me. She didn't even sit. She just paced. Her hands were shaking. "Why did you come?" she asked, like she already regretted seeing me. "I had to," I said. "You left a hole in me the day you said you never loved me." I lived inside that lie for 3 years. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time, I saw guilt. Not sadness. Guilt. "I thought it would keep you safe." "From who, Lena?" "Elliot. He's still around, isn't he?" She nodded once, then walked to the motel desk and pulled out a manila envelope. She tossed it onto the bed like it was on fire. "He's worse than before. He found me here last winter. He doesn't speak much. He doesn't threaten the way people do in movies. He just appears. He knows I told you," she whispered. "He's watching both of us now." I stumbled back like the photo had hit me. "He was never going to stop, was he? Even after you pushed me away. I thought disappearing from your life would protect you," she said, her voice cracking. "But he wanted me gone. Not just gone from you. Gone for good." I looked at her, heart pounding. "Why didn't you go to the police again?" She shook her head. "I tried. Again and again. But he never leaves evidence. No digital trace. No prints. He always stays just legal enough not to get caught. And every time I try to run, he finds me faster." I took a step forward, lowering my voice. "Lena, what does he want?" She turned away. Her back tensed. Her voice was a whisper. "Control. He wants to rewrite history. He says he's protecting the family legacy. He thinks I embarrassed our name by marrying you." I almost laughed, bitterly, of course. "What legacy?" "He believes in something sick," she said, finally facing me. "He's part of a group, a hidden one, not online. They call themselves reformers. It's all about order. Structure. Erasing weakness. They target people like me. And now, you." I sat down, stunned. My hands were cold. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out something small, a flash drive. "This has everything," she said. "Names, dates, emails, photos. I've been collecting it for years, waiting for the right moment. But I couldn't send it. Not alone. Not without risking someone I loved." That word hung in the air, loved. My chest tightened. "You loved me?" I asked, barely above a whisper. She didn't answer. She just handed me the drive and said, "Don't ask that. Not now. Not until it's over." Suddenly, the light in the hallway flickered, once, then twice. Lena froze. "That's him." I stood up, heart in my throat. "You sure?" "Yes. He used to do it when we were kids. It's his way of saying, 'I see you.'" We both looked toward the window, blinds slightly open, and that's when I saw it, the silhouette of a man, standing perfectly still, just beyond the parking lot light. And he was watching us. "What does he want now?" I whispered. "Sometimes he doesn't want anything," she murmured. "He just watches." He waits until you fall apart from the inside. I stepped closer to the window, anger rising through the fear. I had wasted 3 years hating myself because of this ghost of a man. Now I was here, face to face with whatever nightmare had been following her, following us, and I wanted it to stop. I reached for the curtain, ready to open it wide and call him out, but Lena grabbed my wrist. "No," she said firmly. "That's what he wants. He wants attention. He wants proof you're afraid. He feeds on it." I froze, letting her words sink in. And then, as if hearing her defiance, the silhouette moved. Slowly. One step backward into the dark. Then another. And then he was gone. We didn't speak for a long moment. Just silence, the kind that makes your ears ring. I sat down again, heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest. "Is there anyone you can trust?" I asked. She hesitated. "Maybe one. He's a former client. He runs a privacy network, helps people disappear. I helped him once when his daughter was in the hospital. He owes me." "What's his name?" "Emery." "Then we give it to Emery," I said. "It's not that simple," she replied. "If we contact him, Elliot will know. He'll act before we can move. Then we outsmart him." She looked at me like I'd just suggested we walk through fire, but she didn't say no. Instead, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a cheap flip phone. She handed it to me. "Tomorrow at noon, you'll go to the train station. There's a locker. Code 4-3-7-7. Drop the flash drive inside. Walk away. Don't look back. I'll text Emery. He'll collect it." I stared at the phone. "And what about you?" She looked away. "I'll stay behind. He's watching me, not you. If he thinks I still have the drive, maybe you'll make it out." "No," I said instantly. "You're not staying. We're not doing that movie scene where you sacrifice yourself for me." She gave a bitter smile. "It's not a movie, Colby. It's my life. And it stopped being mine the day Elliot came back. That night, we didn't sleep. We didn't kiss. We didn't cry. We just sat, two broken people in a forgotten motel room, counting down the hours until morning. I wanted to tell her everything I'd kept buried for 3 years. How her absence hollowed me out. How I'd replayed that last conversation 1,000 times in my head. How I thought her silence was the end of me. But I didn't say a word. Because somehow, I knew that silence was the only thing keeping us alive. At 11:43 a.m. I walked into the train station with the flash drive in my coat pocket. The crowd moved like ghosts. I found the locker. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the code card. When it finally clicked open, I placed the drive inside, closed the door, and locked it. Then I walked away. And for the first time in years, I thought maybe, just maybe, we were one step ahead of him. But later that night, when I turned on the news in my motel room, my stomach dropped. There had been an explosion at the train station. A targeted locker. Police suspected foul play. The screen went fuzzy. My thoughts scattered. I tried calling Lena. No answer. I texted. Nothing. The silence this time was louder. Meaner. And more final. That's when I realized something. Elliot wasn't trying to scare us anymore. Yet. That word rang in my skull like a funeral bell. I dialed Lena again, and again, and again. Voicemail. Each beep felt heavier than the last. I wasn't even sure what I was hoping for anymore, a voice. A scream. Anything other than silence. I drove back to the bookstore first. The place was closed. Dark. A "closed for renovation" sign hung in the window, taped unevenly like someone rushed it up minutes before leaving for good. I pounded on the glass. Nothing. I circled to the alley out back, empty. Dumpster lid open, papers scattered like someone had left in a panic. And then I saw it, a single paint-stained shoelace caught in the fire escape. I recognized it instantly. Lena used to wear mismatched Converse every day, called them her rebellion shoes. It felt like she'd left it for me. A breadcrumb. A cry for help. But if Elliot had planted the bomb, he'd be looking for both of us now. I knew staying out in the open was suicide, but I couldn't go back to hiding. I needed answers. I needed something Lena never gave me, truth without filter. So I drove to the only place left that hadn't been touched yet, the old art studio where Lena used to paint. It had been abandoned for years after her mural contract ended, but I remembered the code on the side door. She had made me promise never to use it unless something felt wrong. Every part of this felt wrong now. Inside, dust choked the air. Light flickered through cracked windows. And in the back corner, buried beneath a tarp, was something I hadn't expected, a locked wooden trunk, her initials carved on top, faded but legible. It wasn't just a box. It was a vault. Inside were dozens of old sketchbooks, newspaper clippings, and one sealed envelope, marked with the same handwriting as the motel card. On the outside, it read, "Colby, if anything happens, you deserve the rest of the story." I tore it open with trembling hands. The letter inside was handwritten, long, and smeared in places like it had been written through tears. What I read. I don't even know how to explain it. Lena had never just been protecting me from Elliot. She'd been protecting me from herself. She confessed that years ago, when Elliot re-entered her life, she had made a deal, one she never told me about. Elliot didn't want her dead, not originally. He wanted leverage. Someone to use. Someone he could turn into a pawn. And Lena, desperate and terrified, gave him something in exchange for our safety. She didn't say what. But she said that's when she stopped looking at me the same. That's when the weight became unbearable. That's when she stopped believing she was allowed to love me at all. Because she wasn't her own anymore. The deal she made chained her to him, and walking away from me was her only act of rebellion. But here's the part that broke me in ways I'm still trying to process. The last line of the letter said, "He never wanted to kill you, Colby. He wanted you to live knowing you were never enough. I told you I didn't love you to save your life. But the truth is, I've never loved anyone more." I dropped the letter. My knees gave out. I sat there in the dust, surrounded by her drawings, versions of me, of us, of a life we could never have, and I realized I had never been unloved. I had been hidden from love. But now, with that flash drive likely destroyed and Lena missing again, maybe forever, I was starting to see the end of the road. And Elliot was already waiting there. Not with a weapon. But with one last move. The one that would make everything hurt the most. I hadn't gone home in days. I slept in my car, in parking lots and service areas, eating from vending machines, shaving in gas station bathrooms like some unhinged man unraveling by the minute. I couldn't sleep without seeing the explosion on repeat, the fire, the silence that followed, the sick twist in my gut that told me Lena was gone, or worse, taken. My phone stayed dead most of the time now. No one was calling. No one was coming. Then the box showed up. It was sitting on the porch of the motel I had moved to, the one under a different name with cash-only payment. No return address. Just my name in bold, block handwriting on top. No postage. Which meant someone had delivered it, personally. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it like it might hiss. But after 20 minutes of holding my breath, I took it inside and used my car key to cut the tape. Inside was a plain manila folder, a VHS tape in a plastic case, and a single Polaroid photo, Lena, in a chair, eyes red, mouth taped shut. The background was unfamiliar, but the timestamp in the corner said it had been taken the night after the explosion. She was alive. But barely. And signed in my name. My blood turned to ice. Whoever sent this wasn't just trying to frame me, they were building a history. A fictional trail of digital poison. The kind of thing that, with the right timing, could make me disappear from society before I even understood what happened. I picked up the VHS tape, unsure if I even knew where to play it. But taped to the back was a sticky note in the same handwriting as the box label. You were never the target. You were the tool. I found an old thrift store down the road and bought a clunky VHS player for $12. Back at the motel, I plugged it into the TV and fed the tape in with a pit in my stomach. It opened on static, then a slow, glitchy feed of a room I didn't recognize. A man's voice, smooth, calm, emotionless, began to narrate. I couldn't see him. Only Lena, tied to the chair, her eyes darting around in terror. The voice said my name. Then. Colby, she thinks she saved you. She didn't. She gave you to me. And I've used you well. Then it cut to footage I hadn't seen before, security camera style clips of me. At gas stations. Leaving grocery stores. Even asleep in my car. Dozens of locations. He had been following me for months, maybe longer. Do you know how easy it is to become a ghost in this country? You vanish when no one can tell if you ever existed. And she handed me the blueprint. The screen flickered again, and then it was just Lena. No sound. Just her, crying silently, mouthing something I couldn't hear. I replayed it 5 times before I figured it out. She was saying, "Don't come." But I was already packing. Already searching. Already becoming reckless. Because now I knew Elliot's endgame. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't justice. It was legacy. He wanted to replace me with a version of myself he could control, use, manipulate. He wanted to erase the real me so he could wear my name. And Lena, she was leverage. She was bait. But worst of all, she was running out of time. That night, I emptied everything I had left in my bank account, bought a burner phone, and booked a one-way ride to the location I had triangulated from the photo shadows, the background textures, and the pattern on the wall behind her in the VHS. It wasn't exact. But it was close. And when I got there, what I found waiting for me wasn't just Lena. The windows were dark. Curtains drawn. No sound. But I knew I was in the right place. The pattern on the porch banister matched the one behind her in the VHS. And then I saw it, a light flickering in the back room, a faint shadow moving behind it. I took a deep breath, approached the side entrance, and gently pushed the door open. It wasn't locked. Inside, the house smelled of dust and old pine. My footsteps were soft on the wood floor. I followed the hallway until I reached the room with the flickering lamp. And there she was. Lena. Sitting on the edge of a cot, alive, breathing, bruised but whole. Her eyes met mine and immediately filled with tears, real ones this time, not the silent, hopeless kind. The kind that come when you finally feel safe enough to break. I rushed to her. She stood. We met in the middle, arms around each other before a single word passed between us. She held on like she hadn't touched something real in years. And maybe she hadn't. Maybe neither of us had. I thought you were gone, I whispered. I almost was, she said. But he's not here. Not anymore. What happened? And then, from behind me, a familiar voice said, he made one mistake. He underestimated what she'd do for you. I turned, and standing in the doorway was Emery. Older than I'd pictured. Weathered. But solid. Calm. He had come. He'd received the message Lena managed to send just hours before the explosion. He was the one who pulled her out. He intercepted the signal, decoded the footage, and traced the server back to its physical hub. And when Elliot tried to flee, Emery's team, a group of digital privacy advocates, former intelligence analysts, and legal watchdogs, were waiting for him. Elliot was in federal custody now. The flash drive? It had been cloned before the drop. Emery had the real data. And it was already in the hands of people who couldn't be bribed, threatened, or manipulated. It was over. Really over. And I remember, this time, she's not running. We both stopped running. For the first time in years, we're finally free.